My son thought I didn't notice when he slipped something into my fishing tackle box, acting casual as he walked away. But 30 years as a Denver cop taught me to spot deception. When I opened that box later, what I found made my blood run cold. Not just because of what it was, but because I realized my own son was trying to destroy me. He never saw this coming. This story will show you exactly how a father's love turned into a fight for survival. But first, tell us in the comments, what would you do if your own child tried to destroy you? Don't forget to subscribe for the full story. The morning sun filtered through my garage windows in Highlands Ranch as I prepared for my Saturday fishing trip to Cherry Creek Reservoir. At 61, these solitary excursions had become my sanctuary since losing Sarah 3 years ago. I was organizing my gear when Ryan appeared in the doorway. Something about his posture immediately caught my attention. His shoulders were tense, movements too deliberate, like someone trying hard to appear relaxed while fighting internal panic. "Morning, Dad," he said, his voice carrying artificial brightness. "Getting ready for your fishing trip?" I nodded, sorting through my lures. Cherry Creek should be perfect today. Ryan stepped closer, and every instinct I possessed screamed that something was wrong. His eyes kept darting to my tackle box, then away, then back again. As a former Denver police detective, I had spent 3 decades reading body language. "Mind if I take a look at your setup?" he asked, moving toward the box before I could respond. I watched him carefully. His breathing was shallow, sweat beading his forehead despite the cool October morning. When he thought I wasn't looking, he glanced toward the small storage compartment where I kept extra hooks. That's when I saw it. Ryan's right hand moved with practiced precision toward his jacket pocket, withdrawing something small wrapped in black tissue paper. The movement was so quick, so furtive, that if I hadn't been watching with trained eyes, I might have missed it entirely. He placed the object deep in the tackle box's main compartment, nestling it between my spoon lures and lead weights. The whole sequence took less than 10 seconds, but it felt like watching a slow-motion crime unfold in my own garage. My heart pounded, but I forced myself to remain calm, continuing to organize my fishing line as if nothing had happened. Ryan stepped back, wiping his hands on his jeans in a gesture that seemed more about removing evidence than cleaning them. "Well, I should let you get back to it," he said, already moving toward the door. "Have a great time, Dad. Catch some big ones." I watched him disappear into the house, his footsteps echoing up the stairs. The garage fell silent except for distant traffic and my own heavy breathing. I stared at my tackle box as if it had transformed into something dangerous. Whatever Ryan had hidden inside, he clearly didn't want me to find it immediately, but he also seemed to expect that I would find it eventually. The contradiction made no sense, unless he wanted me to find it when it was too late to do anything about it. The realization hit like a physical blow. My own son had just planted something in my possession, something he expected would cause me serious trouble. I thought about recent months. Ryan's increasing desperation about money, his mood swings, the way he avoided eye contact during conversations. Signs I had attributed to unemployment stress and lingering grief from losing Sarah. Signs I had explained away because I loved him. But 30 years of police work had taught me that love could blind you to truth. And the truth was sitting in my tackle box, wrapped in black tissue paper, like a gift I never wanted to receive. Something wasn't right about my son's behavior, and I had a sinking feeling that whatever he had hidden in my fishing gear was going to change everything between us forever. Standing in my garage, staring at the tackle box that now felt like a ticking bomb, my mind drifted back to the night before. Maybe I should have seen this coming. The signs had been there during dinner, written across Ryan's face in desperation I had chosen to ignore. Friday evening had started normally. I grilled chicken while Ryan set the table inside. The October air carried the scent of changing leaves. And for a moment it almost felt like old days, when Sarah would emerge from the kitchen, complaining that I was taking too long with the meat. But Sarah wasn't there. The empty chair at our dining table served as a constant reminder of everything we had lost 3 years ago. Ryan had been unusually quiet, pushing food around his plate more than eating. His hands trembled when he reached for his water glass, but I attributed it to job search stress. "Dad, I need to talk to you about something," he finally said, voice barely above a whisper. I recognized that tone immediately, The same voice he had used as a teenager when he needed money for school trips. But Ryan was 27 now, and these conversations had become far too frequent. "What's going on, son?" He took a deep breath, fingers drumming nervously against the table. "I'm in trouble. Financial trouble. I need $50,000. The number hit me like a slap. I set down my fork, studying his face in the dim overhead light. His eyes were bloodshot, dark circles making him look older than his years. When had he gotten so thin? $50,000? I repeated, trying to keep my voice level. "Ryan, that's more money than I have in savings. What kind of trouble?" His jaw clenched, and I saw something flash across his features. Anger, maybe, or desperation, so deep it had transformed into something darker. "Does it matter?" he snapped. "I'm your son. I need help." "Of course it matters. I've been helping you for months. Rent money, car payment, groceries. Where is all this money going?" Ryan stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "You don't understand these people. They're not patient. They're not going to wait for me to figure things out." "What people, Ryan?" But he was already walking away, heading toward the stairs. "Forget it. I'll figure something else out." I called after him, but the only response was his bedroom door slamming shut. I sat alone at the dinner table, surrounded by half-eaten food, and a growing certainty that my son was involved in something far worse than unemployment. The rest of the evening passed in uncomfortable silence. I cleaned dishes, watched news, went through my normal routine, while Ryan remained locked in his room. I could hear him pacing above me, occasionally talking on the phone in hushed, urgent tones. Now standing in my garage 12 hours later, those hushed phone calls took on sinister new meaning. Ryan hadn't been looking for legitimate help last night. He had been testing me, seeing if I would willingly hand over the money he needed. When I refused, he had moved to Plan B. Whatever was wrapped in that black tissue paper in my tackle box was Ryan's insurance policy, his way of getting what he needed, regardless of what it cost me. I thought about Sarah, about what she would say if she could see us now. She had always been the peacemaker in our family, finding compromise where I saw only black and white. But even Sarah would have struggled with this. My son was planning something that would destroy me, and I was the only one who could stop it. Now it made sense why he had been so nervous around my fishing gear. The trap was already set. I couldn't put it off any longer. Whatever Ryan had hidden in my tackle box was eating at me like acid, and I needed to know what I was dealing with. My hands shook as I approached the box. 30 years of police training warring with fatherly denial. The metal clasps opened with familiar clicks that had once brought me comfort. This tackle box had been my refuge from the darkness I had seen in my police career. Now it felt contaminated. I lifted the top tray, revealing the main compartment. There, nestled between my favorite silver spoon and lead sinkers, was the black tissue paper Ryan had so carefully placed. My heart hammered as I unwrapped it with trembling fingers. The tissue fell away to reveal a clear plastic baggie containing white powder. Even without testing, I knew exactly what I was looking at. I had seen enough fentanyl in evidence rooms to recognize it instantly. The bag was heavy, maybe 2 ounces. Street value of $15, maybe $20,000. More than enough to constitute intent to distribute under federal law. More than enough to destroy what remained of my life. I sank onto my workbench, the baggie feeling like molten lead in my palm. The garage spun around me as the full scope of Ryan's betrayal crashed down like an avalanche. My son was a drug addict. The signs I had missed suddenly blazed in my memory like neon warnings. The weight loss, bloodshot eyes, mood swings I had attributed to grief and unemployment, the trembling hands, desperate need for money, hushed phone calls at all hours. How long had this been going on? How had I, a man who spent 3 decades catching criminals, failed to see that my own son had become one? But worse than the addiction was the betrayal. Ryan hadn't hidden drugs in my tackle box by accident. This was deliberate, calculated. He wanted me to find this fentanyl, but not until it was too late. Not until someone else found it first. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Ryan was planning to frame me. I thought about Sarah, about the promises I had made at her deathbed to take care of our son. "He's lost without me, Thomas," she had whispered, Promise me you'll be patient with him. Patient. I had been patient for 3 years, while Ryan spiraled into addiction under my nose. Patient while he drained my savings with endless emergencies. Patient while he transformed from the sweet boy Sarah raised into someone I no longer recognized. Tears I hadn't shed since Sarah's funeral burned my eyes as I stared at the fentanyl. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about survival. My survival. If Ryan's plan worked, I would be arrested for drug trafficking. At 61, a federal conviction would mean spending my final years in prison, while Ryan inherited everything Sarah and I had worked our entire lives to build. The boy I had taught to fish in this very garage, the son I had loved unconditionally, was willing to destroy me to save himself. I wrapped the fentanyl back in its tissue paper, my hand steadier, now as cold determination replaced shock. Ryan thought he was playing chess with someone who didn't know the rules. But he had forgotten that his father had spent 30 years staying one step ahead of criminals. If my own son wanted to play this game, he was about to discover that I had learned a few moves he never expected. My son was trying to frame me, and he never saw this coming. The fentanyl sat on my workbench like evidence in a case I never wanted to solve. But 30 years of detective work had taught me that emotions were a luxury I couldn't afford. If Ryan was planning to frame me, I needed to understand why. I walked into the house and climbed the stairs toward Ryan's room. As I reached the landing, I heard his voice through the closed door, urgent and pleading. I told you, Marco. I just need another week. My dad's being difficult about the money, but I'm working on it. Marco. I pressed my back against the hallway wall, every instinct from my police days telling me to listen carefully. No, please don't do that. Look, I have a plan. By tomorrow night, I'll have everything you need. $50,000, just like we agreed. $50,000. The same amount Ryan had demanded at dinner. My blood ran cold as pieces began falling into place. The conversation continued, Ryan's voice growing more desperate. You don't understand, Marco. If something happens to me, you'll never get your money. Just give me until Sunday. I heard movement in the room, then Ryan's voice again. This time making a different call. Elena, it's Ryan. Yeah, I know the payment's overdue on the house loan, but I'm getting the money tomorrow. You won't have to start foreclosure proceedings. My knees nearly buckled. House loan. Foreclosure. Ryan had used my home as collateral for something, and I knew nothing about it. 20 minutes later, Ryan emerged from his room, dressed in his interview clothes, looking composed despite the panic I had heard in his voice. Heading out for that job interview, Dad. He called down to me. Wish me luck. I waited until I heard his car pull out of the driveway. Then I got to work. 30 years of police training had taught me how to investigate, and my own son wasn't going to outsmart me. Ryan's room told the story in scattered documents he had tried to hide. Bank statements showed massive cash withdrawals over the past 6 months. Credit card bills revealed cash advances totaling $30,000. Most taken at Prairie Wind Casino. But it was the loan agreement that made my hands shake. Elena Vasquez, licensed moneylender, had provided Ryan with $80,000 using my house as collateral. My signature had been forged on documents that put everything I owned at risk. I found gambling receipts stuffed in his dresser drawer, betting slips showing losses that mounted week after week, phone numbers written on scraps of paper, including one labeled Marco. Emergency only. The timeline became crystal clear. Ryan had been gambling away money he didn't have. When the casino debts mounted, he had borrowed from Elena Vasquez, forging my signature to use the house as collateral. When that money ran out, he had turned to Marco Santos for drugs, probably planning to sell them to pay his other debts. Now both creditors were closing in. Marco wanted $50,000 by Sunday, or Ryan would face consequences that went far beyond financial ruin. Elena would foreclose on my house if her loan wasn't repaid within days. And Ryan, trapped between two dangerous people, had decided to sacrifice his father to save himself. The framing wasn't just about getting money. It was about eliminating the only person who could stop him from losing everything I had worked my entire life to build. I sat surrounded by evidence of my son's betrayal, feeling something cold settle in my chest. The house I'd worked 30 years for was already gone, signed away by forged documents and desperate lies. Sitting in Ryan's room, surrounded by evidence of his betrayal, I felt the last traces of fatherly sentiment drain away. This wasn't about helping a troubled son anymore. This was about survival. I photographed the loan documents and gambling receipts with my phone before returning them to their hiding places. If this went to court, I would need proof that Ryan had forged my signature and stolen my house. But first, I had to deal with the immediate threat. The fentanyl in my tackle box was a loaded gun pointed at my future, and I wasn't going to let Ryan pull the trigger. I walked back to the garage, my steps steady and purposeful. 30 years of police work had taught me that the best defense was often a good offense. Ryan thought he was playing chess with an amateur, but he was about to discover that his father had learned a few moves during his career. The fentanyl sat exactly where I had left it, wrapped in black tissue paper. I picked it up, feeling its weight in my palm. 2 ounces of white powder that could destroy my life or save it, depending on where it ended up. Through the garage window, I could see Ryan's Honda Civic parked in the driveway. A 10-year-old car I had helped him buy when he graduated college. Back when I still believed he would make something of himself. I heard the front door open and Ryan's voice calling out, "Dad, my car is making weird noises again. I'm going to take Uber to the interview to be safe. Don't want to risk breaking down." Perfect. Another lie to add to his collection, but this one worked in my favor. "Good thinking, son," I called back. "Better safe than sorry." I waited until I heard the Uber arrive and Ryan's footsteps fade down the front walkway. Then I found his car keys hanging on the hook by the back door, where he always left them. The Honda's trunk opened with a soft click. Inside were jumper cables, a spare tire, an old gym bag he hadn't used in months. I moved the gym bag aside and placed the fentanyl underneath it, nestled against the wheel well where it would be easy to find, but not immediately visible. As I closed the trunk, I thought about Sarah and what she would say if she could see me now. She had always believed in second chances, in the power of love to redeem even the worst mistakes. But Sarah had never faced a son willing to destroy his father to save himself. I returned the keys to their hook and walked back to my garage. My tackle box sat open on the workbench, innocent now without its deadly cargo. I cleaned every surface Ryan might have touched, removing any trace of what had been hidden there. The irony wasn't lost on me. For 3 years, I had been trying to save a son who was already lost. Now I was trying to save myself from the son I had failed to save. My phone buzzed with a text message from Ryan. "Interview went great. Should hear back Monday. Thanks for believing in me, Dad. The casual lie might have hurt me yesterday. Today, it simply confirmed what I already knew. Ryan had crossed a line from which there was no return." I thought about the phone calls I had overheard, the desperation in Ryan's voice as he pleaded with Marco and Elena for more time. He had promised them money by tomorrow night, money he planned to get by destroying me. But plans had a way of backfiring when you underestimated your opponent. I cleaned my tackle box thoroughly, reorganizing my lures and sinkers until everything looked exactly as it should. An old cop preparing for a peaceful fishing trip. Nothing more. Ryan would return home expecting to find his trap perfectly set. Instead, he would find that the trap had been reset, and he was no longer the hunter. Now we would see who was really the better strategist. Ryan returned home just after 6, looking more confident than I had seen him in months. He walked through the front door with a spring in his step, as if his problems had suddenly lifted. "How did the interview go?" I asked from my recliner, keeping my voice casual. "Really? Well, Dad, they seemed impressed." He hung his jacket on a kitchen chair, movements relaxed and natural. "I think this could be the break I've been waiting for." I watched him carefully, noting how his eyes avoided the garage direction. He was performing, and it was convincing. If I hadn't known better, I might have believed him. "That's wonderful, son. When will you hear back?" "By Monday." Ryan moved toward the stairs, then paused. "I'm pretty tired. Think I'll rest before dinner." I nodded, returning attention to the television, but I listened to every sound from upstairs, every creak, every muffled conversation through his door. It didn't take long. Within 20 minutes, I heard Ryan's voice, urgent and excited. "Yes, I need to report drug trafficking. My name is Ryan Miller, and I have evidence that my father is dealing fentanyl. My heart hammered, but I forced myself to remain still. This was it. The moment Ryan had been building toward. Thomas Miller, 61 years old. He's been hiding drugs in his fishing tackle box. I saw him with a large quantity of fentanyl this morning. I could hear the satisfaction in his voice, the relief of someone who thought his problems were about to be solved. He gave our address, described the tackle box location, even provided details about my supposed criminal associates. Yes, I'll stay on the line. Please hurry. I'm afraid he might try to move the drugs. The irony would have been funny if it weren't so tragic. Ryan was right to fear the drugs might be moved. He just didn't know they already had been. I heard him end the call, then immediately dial another number. Marco, it's Ryan. Yeah, it's done. The cops are on their way to arrest my dad. You'll have your money by tomorrow. Then a third call. Elena, everything's going according to plan. Once he's arrested, I'll have access to everything. Your loan will be paid in full. I sat in my living room listening to my son orchestrate my destruction with criminal efficiency. Part of me was impressed by his thoroughness. The rest of me felt sick. 15 minutes later, I saw the first police car pull into my driveway, followed by 2 more vehicles and an unmarked sedan. Through the window, I recognized Detective Sarah Rodriguez, my former colleague from Denver Police. Ryan came downstairs, his face a mask of concerned innocence. Dad, there are police cars outside. What's going on? His performance was flawless. If I hadn't heard his phone calls, I might have believed his confusion was genuine. The doorbell rang, sharp and authoritative. This was it. Ryan moved toward the door, but I stood up first. I'll get it, son. As I walked toward the front door, I caught Ryan's reflection in the hallway mirror. For just a moment, when he thought I wasn't looking, his mask slipped. The expression underneath was cold, calculating, and completely without remorse. The agents were about to arrive, and my son had no idea his perfect plan was about to backfire completely. I opened the front door to find Detective Sarah Rodriguez standing on my porch, flanked by 2 DA agents in tactical gear. Behind her, more officers secured my property perimeter. "Hello, Thomas," Sarah said, her voice professional but regretful. "We need to talk." "Of course, Sarah, come in." Ryan stepped forward, his face showing concerned confusion. "Detective Rodriguez, what's this about? Is my father in trouble?" Sarah's eyes moved between us, reading dynamics with 20-year veteran skill. "We received a report about drug trafficking at this address. We have a warrant to search the premises." "Drug trafficking?" Ryan's voice carried perfect shock. "That's impossible. My father would never." "It's all right, son," I said calmly. "Let them do their job." The lead DEA agent, a stern man in his 40s, stepped forward. "Mr. Miller, we have information that you've been storing fentanyl in your fishing tackle box." Ryan's eyes lit up with helpful cooperation. "Oh, that's in the garage. I can show you exactly where it is." I followed the group to my garage, watching Ryan's confident stride. He was so certain of victory, so sure his plan was unfolding perfectly. "There it is." Ryan pointed to my tackle box. "Dad was working with it this morning, acting really nervous." The DEA agent approached with practiced caution, photographing from multiple angles before opening the clasps. Ryan moved closer, anticipation radiating from every gesture. The agent lifted the top tray, revealing my organized collection of lures and sinkers. He methodically searched each compartment, removing items and examining them carefully. Nothing. The agent looked up, confusion creasing his features. "Mr. Miller, we're not finding any controlled substances." Ryan's face went white. "That's impossible. I saw him put something in there this morning." "Check again, son," I said quietly. "What exactly did you think you saw?" Ryan's composure began cracking. There was something wrapped in black tissue paper. "Unsure of it." Sarah Rodriguez studied Ryan with new interest. "You seem very certain about your father's tackle box contents. Why is that?" Ryan's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. I was trying to help. I thought I saw something suspicious." The lead agent finished examining the tackle box. Nothing here. Should we expand the search? Wait, Sarah said, detective instincts engaged. Ryan, you called in this tip, didn't you? Ryan's face flushed red. I was just being a concerned citizen. If I was wrong. Let's search your vehicle, Sarah interrupted, tone no longer friendly. My car. Ryan's voice cracked. Why would you search my car? I'm the one who reported this. But agents were already moving toward the Honda Civic. Ryan followed, confident stride replaced by nervous shuffling. The trunk opened with a soft click. The lead agent moved aside the gym bag and spare tire, then stopped. His hand emerged holding a clear plastic baggie filled with white powder wrapped in familiar black tissue paper. Ryan Miller, Sarah said, voice cold as steel. You're under arrest for possession of fentanyl with intent to distribute and filing a false police report. Ryan's face went through shock, panic, then desperate calculation. This is a setup. My father planted that there. He's trying to frame me. Really? Sarah asked. Then why did you call us to search his tackle box instead of your car? Handcuffs clicked around Ryan's wrists. He looked at me with pure hatred. You did this. You moved it. I met his eyes steadily. Son, I have no idea what you're talking about. The look of shock on my son's face said it all. He had never expected his father to be the better strategist. 3 weeks later, I sat in Denver County Courthouse, watching my son face the consequences of his choices. Ryan appeared smaller in his orange jumpsuit, the confidence that had defined him completely stripped away. The federal prosecutor laid out the case with clinical precision. 2 ounces of fentanyl, street value $20,000. Intent to distribute, filing a false police report, attempting to frame a family member. Your Honor, the prosecutor continued, Mr. Ryan Miller not only possessed illegal narcotics, but orchestrated an elaborate scheme to destroy his own father's life. Ryan's court-appointed attorney cited addiction, desperation, and family trauma from losing his mother. But the evidence was overwhelming, and Ryan's recorded phone calls to Marco and Elena had sealed his fate. When Judge Harrison asked if Ryan had anything to say, my son stood slowly. I want to apologize to my father, he said, voice barely audible. I was desperate, and I made terrible choices. I never meant for things to go this far. I sat in the gallery, feeling nothing but emptiness. The apology felt hollow, performed for the judge rather than spoken from the heart. Ryan Miller, Judge Harrison said, you are sentenced to 5 years in federal prison for drug trafficking and conspiracy. The gavel's sound echoed through the courtroom like a door slamming shut on 30 years of fatherhood. But Ryan's arrest had solved only part of my problems. Elena Vasquez still held forged documents claiming ownership of my house. Marcos Santos had disappeared after Ryan's arrest, avoiding police attention. I spent weeks working with my attorney to prove the loan documents were fraudulent. The forged signature was obvious once experts examined it, and Ryan's confession helped establish the deception timeline. The good news, my lawyer explained, is that fraudulent documents are void. Your house was never legally at risk. Elena Vasquez has fled the state to avoid prosecution. Detective Rodriguez kept me informed about the ongoing investigation. We're working with federal marshals to track down both Elena and Marco. Ryan's cooperation might reduce his sentence, but he's looking at serving at least 3 years. 3 years minimum. My son would be 30 when released. I would be 64 if I lived that long. The house felt different now, emptier in ways that had nothing to do with Ryan's physical absence. I walked through rooms where we had shared meals, watched television, argued about responsibility. The memories felt contaminated by knowledge of his betrayal. 2 months after Ryan's sentencing, I made a decision that would have been unthinkable before. I put the house on the market. Are you sure, Thomas? Sarah Rodriguez asked. This is your home. Sarah's home. Sarah's gone, I replied. And the son I raised doesn't exist anymore. It's time to start over. The realtor said I could expect a quick sale in Denver's hot market. I began sorting through 30 years of accumulated memories, deciding what deserved a place in my new life and what belonged to the past. Some chapters ended with celebration. Others ended with relief. This one ended with acceptance that family could betray the deepest trust. But survival meant choosing your own well-being over obligation to those who would destroy you. 6 months later, I stood on the balcony of my new apartment in Boulder, Colorado, watching the sunrise paint the Rocky Mountains in gold and crimson. The view was spectacular, nothing like the suburban streets of Highlands Ranch, where I had spent 30 years building a life that ultimately belonged to someone else. The house sold within 2 weeks. After paying off the mortgage and legal fees, I had enough to buy this small place outright and start fresh. No debt, no obligations, no family members who might betray me for their own gain. I kept only what mattered: Sarah's photographs, my fishing gear, and the hard-earned wisdom that love without boundaries becomes enablement, and enablement destroys both giver and receiver. Ryan had written me twice from federal prison. Both letters remained unopened on my kitchen counter. Some bridges, once burned, were better left as ash. Detective Rodriguez visited last month with updates. Marcos Santos had been arrested in Phoenix, facing charges that would keep him imprisoned longer than Ryan. Elena Vasquez remained a fugitive, but her loan-sharking operation was dismantled. Do you ever regret how it ended? Sarah asked as we shared coffee in my new living room. I regret that it had to end that way, I replied. But I don't regret protecting myself from someone who would have destroyed me without hesitation. The truth was simpler than regret or forgiveness. I had raised a son who became a stranger, loved someone who saw that love as weakness to exploit. When faced with the choice between his survival and mine, Ryan chose his own. I simply made the same choice. My tackle box sat in the corner, cleaned and reorganized, waiting for weekend trips to mountain lakes, where the water ran clear and the fish didn't lie about their intentions. Simple pleasures for a man who had learned to value simplicity. Sometimes the people closest to us become the greatest threats to our well-being. Sometimes protecting yourself means accepting that family can be the enemy. Sometimes the hardest lesson in life is learning when to walk away from those you love most. I had spent 61 years learning that lesson. Ryan had the rest of his life to learn it too. Through Thomas's journey, we discover that authentic love requires wisdom, not just sacrifice. Grandpa's stories throughout history teach us that enabling harmful behavior isn't compassion, it's complicity. God designed families to nurture growth, not to shelter destruction. When betrayal stories unfold within our own homes, we face the hardest test of faith, choosing God's call to wisdom over our emotional attachments. Betrayal stories like Thomas and Ryan's reveal how addiction and desperation can transform loved ones into strangers. Yet, God never abandons us in these dark valleys. He provides discernment to recognize when love has become manipulation, when family loyalty has become self-destruction. Thomas's police training wasn't just career preparation. It was God's way of equipping him for this ultimate test. Grandpa's stories often speak of tough love, of drawing lines that seem harsh, but preserve what matters most. God's love for us includes teaching us to value the life He gave us enough to protect it, even from family. When Ryan chose fentanyl over character, when he chose deception over honesty, God had already placed within Thomas the strength to respond with justice rather than enablement. The most profound Grandpa stories remind us that God calls us to be good stewards of our own souls. Sometimes His greatest mercy is giving us permission to walk away from those who would drag us into their darkness. If this story touched your heart, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever faced betrayal from someone you trusted completely? How did you find the strength to protect yourself? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories about resilience, family, and the courage to start over. Remember, sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to be destroyed by those who would sacrifice you for their own salvation. I hadn't been able to reach my son for an entire week. Finally, I decided to drive to his house. That's where I found Tyler, my 9-year-old grandson, hiding in the closet, barely clinging to life after 6 days alone. His whisper froze my blood. "Grandpa," I heard Mommy's voice. Sometimes the smallest voices carry the heaviest truth. What Tyler witnessed on that stormy night would uncover a ruthless plot when a mother's love couldn't outweigh the lure of $750,000. Justice, I learned, often comes from the most unexpected places, and the power of family love will always rise above betrayal. Before I tell you about that harrowing week of unanswered calls, make sure to hit subscribe and leave a comment to let us know where you're watching from. Your support helps us continue sharing powerful stories of justice and the enduring strength of family. What I'm about to tell you happened just 6 months ago, but it feels like a lifetime. It began on an ordinary Tuesday morning when my weekly phone call to my son went unanswered. Every Tuesday at 9 a.m., my phone would ring with Marcus calling to check in, or I'd call him. We'd been doing this dance for years, even since my grandson Tyler was born 9 years ago. Marcus was reliable that way, even after his messy divorce 3 months back. Construction foreman, single dad doing his best to keep everything together. Our Tuesday calls were sacred, like Sunday dinner used to be when his mother was still alive. That particular Tuesday morning, I sat at my kitchen table with my coffee and the sports section, waiting for the phone to ring. 9:15 came and went. By 9:30, I picked up my old rotary phone. Yeah, I still used the landline, sue me, and dialed his number. Voicemail. You've reached Marcus Williams. Leave a message and I'll call you back. Hey son, it's your old man. Just checking in. Call me when you get a chance. Construction work was unpredictable. Early morning emergencies, equipment breakdowns. I understood that from my mechanic days, but Marcus always called back, usually within an hour or two. By evening, still nothing. I tried again during Tyler's homework time, straight to voicemail. This time, I couldn't keep the concern out of my voice. Marcus, it's Dad again. Just want to make sure everything's okay with you and Tyler. Wednesday brought more silence. I called at 6:30, thinking I'd catch him before work. Nothing. The knot in my stomach was getting tighter. That same feeling I used to get when a customer's engine made sounds that meant expensive trouble ahead. Thursday, I called his construction company. Bill Henderson, his foreman, sounded surprised. Shane, Marcus didn't show Monday. Figured he had the flu. You know how reliable he usually is. Monday. Marcus had missed work since Monday, and here it was Thursday. That knot turned into a fist. Friday morning, I called Mrs. Dorothy Hayes across the street from Marcus. Sweet retired teacher. Always kept an eye on the neighborhood. Her voice was careful, like she'd been dreading this conversation. Oh, Shane, I saw lights on Sunday night, but I haven't seen his truck move all week. Haven't seen little Tyler playing in the yard either. Sunday night, the last sign of life anyone had noticed. Saturday, I barely slept. Called Brittany's old number, disconnected. Called Tyler's school. He'd been absent all week. No explanation. By Sunday morning, I couldn't take it anymore. 64 years old, and I was packing an overnight bag like I was heading into battle. Spare clothes, medications, the spare key Marcus had given me years ago. The 3-hour drive felt endless. My pickup hummed along the interstate, while my mind raced through possibilities. Maybe Marcus took Tyler on vacation. Maybe there was a family emergency. Maybe his phone broke. But that mechanic's instinct, the one that had never steered me wrong in 30 years of diagnosing problems, was screaming that something was terribly wrong. Marcus wasn't the type to disappear without word. He was responsible, the kind of father who called if he was running 10 minutes late. As I pulled into his subdivision, hands white-knuckling the steering wheel, I tried to prepare myself for whatever I was about to find. 30 years of fixing broken things had taught me that sometimes the damage runs deeper than what you can see on the surface. Nothing could have prepared me for what was waiting in that quiet house. Marcus' truck sat in the driveway like it had been there for days. A thin layer of dust on the windshield, newspapers piled up on the front porch. The house looked normal from the outside. White siding, blue shutters, the kind of suburban home that whispered, "Everything's fine here." But 30 years of diagnosing problems had taught me to look deeper. I knocked. First, rang the doorbell. Nothing. The silence felt heavy, unnatural for a house that should have a 9-year-old boy running around. I tried the door handle, unlocked. That stopped me cold. Marcus was security conscious, especially since the divorce. He never left doors unlocked. Marcus? Tyler? It's Grandpa. My voice echoed through the empty hallway. The living room made my blood run cold. The coffee table was pushed at an odd angle, one leg slightly bent. A lamp lay on its side behind the couch. Not obvious damage, but wrong enough that my mechanics eye caught it immediately. Someone had been in a hurry to clean up, but they'd missed the details. I moved through the house methodically. Kitchen, dishes in the sink, coffee maker still plugged in with old coffee burned to the bottom. Marcus's home office, paper scattered, chair pushed away from the desk like someone had gotten up quickly. "Marcus, your old man's here," I called out, climbing the stairs with legs that felt heavier with each step. His bedroom looked lived in but empty. Bed unmade, clothes on the floor, not like the neat Marcus I knew. My heart was hammering against my ribs as I approached Tyler's room. "Tyler, Grandpa brought you those car magazines." I pushed open the door to his bedroom. Toys scattered normally. Bed. The room looked empty, abandoned. I was about to leave when I heard it. A faint scratching sound, like something small moving against wood. I froze, listening. There it was again, coming from the closet. "Tyler, are you in there, buddy?" A weak tapping sound answered me. Deliberate. Someone was in that closet. My hand shook as I slid open the closet door. Behind the hanging clothes, curled up in the back corner, was Tyler. My grandson, barely conscious, clutching a small toy car to his chest. His lips were cracked, his eyes barely open. But when he saw me, the faintest smile crossed his face. "Grandpa." His voice was barely a whisper. "Tyler, it's okay. You're safe now, son." I knelt down, my knees protesting, and gently touched his forehead. Burning hot, dehydrated. How long had he been in here? He tried to sit up, but couldn't. I could see he'd been surviving on whatever he could reach. An empty juice box, some crackers scattered around him. Smart boy, rationing what little he had. "Where's Daddy?" he whispered. The question hit me like a punch to the gut. I didn't have an answer. "We're going to find him, buddy. But first, we need to get you some help." I carefully lifted Tyler from the closet. He weighed almost nothing, like a bird with broken wings. His clothes were dirty, and he smelled like he'd been trapped in that small space for days. With Tyler cradled in one arm, I fumbled for my cell phone with the other. My fingers could barely dial the numbers. 911, what's your emergency? My grandson's alive, but barely. And my son. I think something terrible happened here. The dispatcher's voice seemed to come from far away as I gave the address, explained what I'd found. Tyler's head rested against my shoulder, his breathing shallow but steady. Whatever had happened in this house, Tyler had survived it. But as I held him, waiting for the ambulance, one terrifying question echoed in my mind. If Tyler was hiding in that closet for days, where the hell was Marcus? The paramedics worked with quiet efficiency, checking Tyler's vitals, while I hovered nearby, like a protective shadow. Feline in his thin arm, oxygen mask over his small face. He looked so fragile against the white ambulance stretcher, but his eyes stayed locked on mine. Severe dehydration, possible malnutrition. The lead paramedic reported into his radio. 9-year-old male, conscious but weak. ETA to Children's Hospital, 12 minutes. I rode in the ambulance, holding Tyler's free hand. Every bump in the road made me wince, but he squeezed my fingers whenever I started to pull away. Smart kid. He knew I wasn't going anywhere. The emergency room exploded into controlled chaos when we arrived. Nurses, doctors, machines beeping. I tried to stay close, but they wheeled Tyler behind curtains where I couldn't follow. "Sir, we need some information." A young nurse with kind eyes guided me to a chair. "Are you the father?" "Grandfather, Shane Williams. His father is missing." The word tasted bitter. She took notes while I provided what I could. Tyler's medical history, emergency contacts, insurance information. My hand shook as I signed forms, the reality sinking in. Tyler was safe, but Marcus was still out there somewhere. The boy stable, Dr. Martinez told me an hour later. Dehydrated, malnourished, but no permanent damage. He's a tough kid. How long was he alone? Best guess since Sunday night. Maybe Monday morning. The doctor's eyebrows rose. 6 days. That's remarkable survival instinct for a 9-year-old. Before I could respond, a tall man in a rumpled suit approached. Detective Miller, according to his badge, gray hair, tired eyes that had seen too much. Mr. Williams, I understand you reported your son missing. I explained the timeline, the missed calls, the week of silence, finding Tyler in the closet. Detective Miller took notes, nodding occasionally. Any idea why your son might have left town? Family emergency, work issues, relationship problems. Marcus doesn't just disappear. He's responsible, especially with Tyler. Something happened to him. We'll file a missing person report, check with his employer, canvass the neighborhood. Sometimes single parents get overwhelmed. Not Marcus. My voice came out sharper than intended. He'd never leave Tyler alone like that. The detective studied me for a moment, then nodded. We'll treat this seriously, Mr. Williams. Can I speak with the boy? He's been through hell. Be gentle. Tyler's hospital room felt too bright, too sterile. But when he saw me, his face lit up with the first real smile I'd seen all day. The 4 bags dripped steadily, color slowly returning to his cheeks. Grandpa, you stayed. Of course I stayed, buddy. I'm not going anywhere. Detective Miller pulled up a chair, his voice soft and patient. Tyler, I'm Detective Miller. I'm trying to help find your dad. Can you tell me the last time you saw him? Tyler's eyes darted to me, then back to the detective. His small hand found mine under the blanket. It was nighttime, he whispered. There was yelling. My blood went cold. Yelling. Tyler's grip tightened on my hand. His voice was barely audible, but every word hit like a hammer blow. Grandpa, I heard scary voices. The words scary voices hung in the hospital room like a dark cloud. Detective Miller leaned forward in his chair, his pen poised over his notepad, but I could see the concern in his eyes. Tyler, I said gently, squeezing his small hand. Can you tell us more about those voices? But Tyler had retreated back into himself, exhausted from even that small revelation. His eyelids drooped, and within minutes, he was asleep, still clutching my hand. Detective Miller and I stepped into the hallway. Mr. Williams, that boy may be our only witness to whatever happened, but he's been through trauma. We need to handle this carefully. He's just a kid, I said, my voice rougher than intended. He's been hiding in a closet for 6 days. I understand. I'm calling in Dr. Emily Roberts. She's a child psychologist who specializes in trauma cases. She knows how to talk to kids without pushing too hard. That night, I slept in the chair beside Tyler's bed. Every time he stirred or whimpered in his sleep, I was there. The nurses checked on him regularly, adjusting his monitoring his recovery. By morning, color had returned to his cheeks. Dr. Emily Roberts arrived around 9, carrying a bag full of art supplies. She had kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and the patient demeanor of someone who'd spent years earning children's trust. Hi, Tyler. I'm Dr. Roberts, but you can call me Miss Emily if you want. She pulled up a chair. Your grandpa says you're pretty brave. Tyler glanced at me, then back at her, still holding that toy car like a lifeline. Can you tell me how you stayed safe while you were hiding? She asked, spreading paper and crayons on his bedside table. Daddy told me to hide in my closet until he called for me. So I waited. Tyler's voice was stronger today. I had snacks in my toy box, crackers and fruit snacks, and juice boxes under my bed. My heart ached listening to him describe his 6-day ordeal. When the juice was gone, I crawled to the bathroom for water from the sink. I made a bed with my pillows and talked to lightning. He held up the toy car. Every day I listened for Daddy to call me out, but he never did. Dr. Roberts nodded encouragingly. You were very brave, Tyler. Can you tell me about those scary voices you mentioned to your grandpa? Tyler started drawing a small figure in a dark space. It was Sunday night, raining really hard. I was building with Legos when the doorbell rang lots of times. Daddy looked scared and told me to hide right away. Detective Miller had quietly entered and stood by the door. I hid behind my winter coats. Then I heard people come in. 2 people. Mommy and a man with a deep voice. The word mommy hit me like a punch to the gut. Brittany. Mommy was yelling at Daddy really loud about money. She kept saying he owed her. The man said mean things. Then there was pushing and shouting, and Tyler's crayon pressed harder against the paper. Everything went quiet. Really, really quiet. Tears rolled down his cheeks. I wanted to find Daddy, but I was scared. I kept waiting for him to call me, but he never did. Detective Miller stepped forward carefully. Tyler, are you sure it was your mommy? I know her voice. The man. She called him. Derek. Derek. A name to go with the voice. Detective Miller looked at me with grim understanding. Mr. Williams, this is now a homicide investigation. We'll issue an APB for Brittany Parker and Derek. In the hallway, his expression was grave. There's something else. We found your son's financial records. There's a life insurance policy. And given what happened with their divorce 3 months ago. 2 days later, Detective Miller asked me to accompany him back to Marcus's house. The crime scene tape was still up, a yellow reminder of the nightmare that had unfolded there. I wasn't sure I was ready, but I needed to see this through. The forensics team had been thorough. Luminal revealed what the naked eye had missed. Blood spatter on the living room wall, more on the hardwood floor near the coffee table's sharp corner. Your son put up a fight, Detective Miller said quietly. The blood pattern suggests he was pushed, hit his head on the table edge. Significant trauma. I stared at the outline where Marcus had fallen, my hands clenched into fists. My boy, my responsible, caring son, murdered in his own home. The insurance policy, I said. Tell me about that. Detective Miller opened his folder. $750,000. Marcus purchased it when Tyler was born, named Brittany as beneficiary. After their divorce 3 months ago, he never changed it. $750,000. Enough to kill 4, apparently. Why didn't he update it? I asked, though I suspected I knew the answer. According to his coworkers, he'd been meaning to. Said he needed to take care of paperwork after the divorce, but work kept him busy. Brittany knew she was still listed. She'd helped him organize his finances when they were married. We drove to Marcus's construction site, where I spoke with Bill Henderson and the crew. They painted a picture of a man struggling with recent changes, but devoted to his son. Marcus mentioned Brittany had gotten into cryptocurrency trading. Bill told me. Lost big. Kept asking him to cover her losses. He helped her twice. Paid off maybe $40, $50,000 total. But the third time, he said no. When was this? Right before they divorced. Marcus said he couldn't keep throwing good money after bad, especially with Tyler to think about. Brittany didn't take it well. The pieces were falling into place. Brittany's crypto losses, Marcus' refusal to enable her addiction anymore, the divorce, and now the insurance money she desperately needed. Back at the station, Detective Miller showed me security footage from a neighbor's camera, blurry, but clear enough to show a sedan parked outside Marcus' house Sunday night around the time Tyler described hearing the voices. We're running the partial license plate through DMV records, he said, and we've got more. Mrs. Hayes, the neighbor across the street, had been more observant than she'd initially let on. When pressed, she admitted seeing 2 figures leaving Marcus' house late Sunday night. I thought about calling police, she said, wringing her hands. But it was raining so hard, and I figured it was family business. I should have called. Don't blame yourself, I told her. You couldn't have known. But the guilt in her eyes mirrored my own. If I'd driven down sooner, if I trusted my instincts earlier, would Marcus still be alive? Detective Miller's phone buzzed. He answered, "Listen," then hung up with a grim smile. We got a hit on the license plate. The car belongs to Derek Stevens, 35 years old. Address in the city. And get this, he's registered as a cryptocurrency investment advisor. Derek Stevens, the man with the deep voice Tyler had heard. Brittany's accomplice and apparently her crypto mentor turned partner in murder. We're bringing him in for questioning, Detective Miller said. And Mr. Williams, we're going to get them both. Your son's going to get justice. As we left the station, I thought about Tyler, still recovering in the hospital, still asking when Daddy was coming home. Soon I'd have to tell him the truth. But first, I wanted to make sure the people who destroyed our family would pay for what they'd done. The next morning, Derek Stevens didn't run when they came for him. Detective Miller called me from the arrest scene, a rundown apartment complex on the east side of town. Derek had been holed up there since Sunday night, apparently waiting for this moment. He's not what I expected, Detective Miller told me later at the station. Nervous, sweating, but not the hardened criminal type. More like someone in over his head. I watched through the one-way glass as they brought Derek into the interview room. Mid-30s, average height, the kind of guy who'd blend into any crowd. His hands shook as he sat down, and he kept glancing at the door like he wanted to bolt. Mr. Stevens, Detective Miller began, we have evidence placing you at Marcus Williams' house Sunday night. A 9-year-old boy heard your voice. We found your car on security footage. Derek's composure cracked immediately. I didn't want anyone to get hurt. She said it would be simple, just scare him a little. You mean Brittany Parker? Brittany told me Marcus had stolen money from her, crypto investments they'd made together. She said he owed her over $200,000. Derek's voice was getting higher, more desperate. I believed her. She showed me trading records, losses that looked real. Detective Miller slid a folder across the table. These are the actual trading records, Mr. Stevens. Brittany Parker lost that money through her own reckless trading. Marcus Williams had nothing to do with it. Derek stared at the papers, his face going pale. She lied to me. Tell us what really happened Sunday night. Derek's story came out in broken pieces. He'd met Brittany through an online cryptocurrency forum where he offered investment advice. She'd seemed desperate, claimed her ex-husband had cheated her out of money during their divorce. She said Marcus had a hidden wallet with Bitcoin worth hundreds of thousands. All we had to do was get him to transfer it back to her. Derek wiped sweat from his forehead. When we got there, she started yelling about insurance money, about how he owed her for all the years she'd supported his career. That wasn't part of the plan. What was the plan? I scare him into giving up the crypto wallet, but there was no wallet, was there? She'd made it all up. Detective Miller leaned forward. What happened when Marcus refused? Brittany lost it, started screaming about how he'd left her with all this debt, how she'd helped build his life and deserved that money. Marcus tried to calm her down, said he'd already helped her twice and couldn't do it anymore. Derek's voice dropped to a whisper. She pushed him. I tried to grab her, but Marcus stumbled backward and hit the coffee table. And then there was so much blood. Brittany panicked, said we had to make it look like an accident or we'd both go to prison. She knew about the insurance policy, said it would solve all her problems. The room fell silent except for Derek's ragged breathing. Where's Marcus Williams' body, Mr. Stevens? There's a storage facility outside town. Unit 247. She rented it under a fake name, paid cash. Derek looked up with desperate eyes. I swear I didn't know about the insurance until after. She used me. Detective Miller stepped outside where I was waiting. He's telling the truth about being manipulated, but he's still an accessory to murder. The storage unit checks out. We found Marcus. My legs nearly gave out. Hearing it confirmed made it real in a way that nothing else had. What about Brittany? Stevens says she's been moving between cheap motels, paying cash. But we traced her phone. She made a mistake. Called her sister in Phoenix this morning. Detective Miller's radio crackled. We've got her location. Motel 6 on Highway 33. We've located Brittany Parker. He told me she's about to be arrested. They didn't find Brittany at the motel. By the time police arrived at the Highway 33 location, she'd already vanished like smoke. The desk clerk remembered her, a nervous woman, paid cash, left before dawn without checking out properly. But desperation has a way of making smart people do stupid things, and Brittany Parker was running on pure panic. Now, Detective Miller's call came at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We got her. Downtown Greyhound Station, trying to board a bus to Tijuana with fake identification. Had a whole new identity ready. Sarah Mitchell, complete with driver's license and social security card. I drove downtown to see for myself, needing to witness this moment. Through the window of the police cruiser, Brittany looked like a completely different person from the woman who'd once sat at my dinner table, laughing at Marcus's jokes and helping Tyler with his homework. Her naturally blonde hair was dyed jet black, chopped short and uneven like she'd done it herself in a motel bathroom. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her clothes were wrinkled from days of running. When she saw me standing on the sidewalk, her expression shifted from defiance to something that might have been shame. For just a moment, I saw a flicker of the young woman Marcus had fallen in love with all those years ago. Then her face hardened again. She had $1,500 in cash, 3 sets of fake documents, and a bus ticket to Mexico. Detective Miller told me as we walked into the station. Been planning this escape route for days, maybe weeks. This wasn't a crime of passion. This was calculated. At the police station, I positioned myself behind the one-way glass to watch her interrogation. Unlike Derek's nervous, guilt-ridden confession, Brittany was still trying to control the narrative, still calculating how to minimize her culpability. It was Derek's idea from the beginning, she insisted, her voice steady despite the handcuffs. I just wanted to talk to Marcus about the money he owed me. Derek's the one who got violent when Marcus refused to help. Detective Miller spread crime scene photos across the table. Funny thing, Mrs. Parker. Mr. Stevens tells a different story. Says you masterminded the whole operation. Says you specifically told him about a $750,000 life insurance policy. That's when Brittany's careful composure began to crack. Her hands trembled slightly as she stared at the photos of Marcus's living room, the blood evidence, the overturned furniture. Marcus owed me that money, she said, her voice rising. Do you understand what I sacrificed for him? I worked 2 jobs to put him through trade school. I took care of Tyler while he built his construction business. When he left me, he destroyed my financial future. So you destroyed his life? It wasn't supposed to happen like that. The words exploded out of her. I just needed him to understand what I was going through. The crypto losses, the margin calls, creditors calling 20 times a day, threatening to garnish my wages. I was about to lose my apartment, my car, everything. What about losing your son? That question hit her like a physical blow. For the first time since her arrest, I saw genuine emotion break through her defensive walls. Her face crumpled, and tears started flowing. Tyler wasn't supposed to be there, she whispered. Marcus told me Tyler was staying at Shane's house for the week. If I'd known he was home, I never would have. She couldn't finish the sentence. He was hiding in his bedroom closet for 6 days, Brittany. 6 days surviving on crackers and bathroom water, waiting for his father to come get him out of hiding. She broke down completely, sobbing into her handcuffed hands. But watching her cry didn't give me the satisfaction I'd expected. It just felt hollow, pointless. Marcus was still gone. Tyler was still traumatized, and our family was still shattered. Both Brittany and Derek were formally charged with first-degree murder the next day. The evidence was overwhelming. Derek's detailed confession, the storage unit with Marcus's body, Tyler's eyewitness testimony, the insurance motive, and the attempted flight to Mexico. The prosecutor announced she'd be seeking life sentences for both defendants. Bail was denied. Back at the hospital, Tyler was making remarkable progress. Dr. Roberts said his resilience was extraordinary for a child his age. The physical effects of his 6-day ordeal were healing. He'd gained back most of the weight he'd lost, and his color had returned to normal. But the emotional recovery would take much longer. "Grandpa," Tyler said one afternoon as we worked on a 1,000-piece puzzle of a vintage car, "why did Mommy want to hurt Daddy? How do you explain greed and desperation to a 9-year-old? How do you tell a child that his mother valued insurance money more than his father's life? Sometimes grown-ups make very bad choices when they're scared and angry, buddy. Your mommy owed a lot of money to some bad people, and she thought the only way to fix it was to hurt Daddy. But that was wrong, and now she has to face the consequences. Will I have to see her again? Not if you don't want to. You're safe with me now." The custody paperwork was surprisingly straightforward. I was Tyler's closest living relative, and despite the tragic circumstances, I was determined to provide him with the stable, loving home Marcus would have wanted for his son. 3 weeks after the arrest, Detective Miller visited us at my house. Tyler had been discharged from the hospital, and we were slowly building our new life together in my small Ohio town. The trial was scheduled to begin in 4 weeks. He told me privately, while Tyler played with his toy cars in the backyard. "Derek's attorney is pushing for a plea bargain, but the prosecutor isn't interested in anything less than 25 years. Brittany's lawyer is trying an insanity defense, claiming emotional distress from the divorce. He paused, watching Tyler make engine noises as he drove his cars around an imaginary track. Tyler's testimony will be crucial to securing convictions. The jury needs to hear what he witnessed, what he survived. Are you both prepared for that? I looked at my grandson, still so small, but displaying a courage that humbled me daily. We'll do whatever it takes to get justice for Marcus. The trial starts next month. Are you prepared to testify? The courthouse was packed the morning of the trial. Local news crews lined the steps, and Marcus' construction crew filled the front rows. Tyler held my hand tightly as we walked through the crowd, his small fingers trembling despite his brave face. Just tell the truth, I whispered. I'll be right here with you. District Attorney Sarah Chun presented the case methodically. Crime scene photos, forensic evidence, financial records showing Brittany's desperation, and the insurance motive. When Tyler took the witness stand, the courtroom fell silent. He looked impossibly small in that chair, but his voice was clear as he recounted that terrible Sunday night. He told them about hiding in the closet, hearing his mother's angry voice, the sudden silence that followed. I waited for Daddy to call me out like he promised, Tyler said, looking at the jury. But he never did. Several jurors wiped their eyes. Brittany's attorney tried painting her as a desperate mother driven to temporary insanity. But Derek's testimony destroyed any sympathy she might have earned. She planned everything, Derek said steadily. She knew about the insurance policy, knew she was still the beneficiary. She told me Marcus had stolen crypto from her. That was a lie. She needed me to help move the body, make it look like he disappeared. Brittany's face went white as Derek continued. She said we'd split the insurance money and start fresh. I was stupid enough to believe her. Why testify against Mrs. Parker now? Derek looked at Tyler, then at me. Because a 9-year-old spent 6 days alone thinking his father abandoned him. Marcus Williams didn't deserve to die. The jury deliberated 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Brittany received life without parole. Derek got 25 years. As the verdicts were read, I felt Marcus' presence in that courtroom. Justice was served, but it couldn't bring him back or erase Tyler's trauma. It could only ensure his killers paid the price. 6 months later, Tyler and I had found our rhythm. I'd bought a house near his new school, using the insurance money, the same money that cost Marcus his life, to secure Tyler's future. Dr. Roberts continued Tyler's therapy. Slowly, he was healing. Nightmares came less frequently. He laughed more often. He made friends at school. On a warm Saturday, I was teaching Tyler to change oil in my pickup truck. His small hands gripped the wrench as I guided him through the process, the same way I taught Marcus 30 years earlier. Grandpa, Tyler said, face smudged with grease, but smiling. Do you think Daddy would be proud of me? Son, I said, ruffling his hair. Your daddy would be so proud he'd cry happy tears. Tyler laughed, a genuine, joyful sound that filled the garage and my heart. In that moment, I knew we'd be okay. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but we had each other. From the bottom of my heart, I want to tell you who followed my story that family should never be taken for granted. A single moment of greed can destroy everything. But I also learned that love endures, that justice prevails when you fight for it, and that healing is possible even after the darkest tragedy. Tyler still asks about his father sometimes, and I tell him stories about the good man Marcus was. Devoted, hardworking, loving. Those memories keep Marcus alive for both of us. The insurance money Brittany killed for now pays for Tyler's education, his therapy, our new beginning. There's bitter irony in that, but also hope. Something good came from something terrible. Marcus is gone, but his son will grow up knowing he was loved and protected. That's a promise I'll keep for the rest of my life. Sometimes when Tyler laughs or shows kindness to others, I see Marcus in him, and I know that love truly does conquer all. From this heartbreaking journey, I've learned that betrayal stories, like mine, teach us the most painful yet valuable lessons about human nature. Family bonds can be tested by greed, but they can also be the source of our greatest strength. When Brittany chose money over family, She destroyed not just Marcus' life, but shattered the innocence of her own child. God works in mysterious ways, and I believe He guided me to that house at exactly the right moment to save Tyler. Without divine intervention, my grandson might not have survived those 6 terrible days. Even in our darkest hour, God's love carried us through. These grandpa stories remind us that sometimes we're called to step up when tragedy strikes. At 64, I never imagined I'd be raising a child again, but God had different plans. He gave me the strength to seek justice and the wisdom to help Tyler heal. What strikes me most about betrayal stories is how they reveal people's true character. Derek showed remorse and testified for justice. Brittany remained defiant to the end. But through it all, God's justice prevailed in that courtroom. These grandpa stories aren't just about loss. They're about love conquering evil, about second chances, and about the responsibility we have to protect the innocent. Tyler's laughter in my garage that day proved that healing is possible even after the deepest wounds. If this story touched your heart, please hit that subscribe button and share it with someone who needs to hear about the power of family love. Leave a comment below telling us where you're listening from. Your support means everything to this old grandfather.